Hello, friends, and welcome once again to another episode of Strange Planet. And don't be shy. Give us a 5-star review and post some comments. It really helps with the algorithms. Hey, what if the skies above you aren't just cloudy, they're weaponized? What if the air you breathe, the food you eat, and the injections you're told to take are all part of a silent, global experiment to rewrite your very biology? Today, we're going to dive into the chilling world of geoengineering and synthetic biology with Elana Freeland, a relentless truth seeker exposing a decades-long agenda. Chemtrails aren't just lines in the sky. They're delivery systems for nanotech, heavy metals, and AI-driven biomachines. From the space fence locking us into an electromagnetic cage to the mRNA jabs merging man with machine, Elana reveals a transhumanist plot to phase out Human 1.0. This isn't about climate control, it's about control, period. So buckle up for a conversation that will shatter your worldview and demand you choose humanity or a synthetic future. Elana Freeland is a pioneering researcher, author, lecturer, unveiling the hidden machinations of the deep state, focusing on geoengineering, synthetic biology, and electromagnetic warfare. She's the author of the seminal geoengineering trilogy, Chemtrails, HARP, and the full-spectrum dominance of planet Earth, Under an Ionized Sky, From Chemtrails to Space Fence Lockdown, and Geoengineered Transhumanism, How the Environment Has Been Weaponized by Chemtrails, Electromagnetism, and Nanotechnology for Synthetic Biology. And her upcoming book, Remaining Human, The Nano-Symbio Assault and Directed Evolution, explores the culmination of a 25-year epigenetic assault via geoengineering and brain-computer interface technologies. Elana's work connects atmospheric spraying, mRNA injections, and AI-driven transhumanism, exposing a global agenda to transform humanity and the biosphere into a synthetic, programmable system. And she shares her insights on platforms like Patreon, X, Odyssey, BitChute, and YouTube, urging humanity to resist the transhumanist tide. Elana Freeland, welcome back to Strange Planet. How are you?
Great. Thank you, Richard. It's so good to see you again.
Likewise. Well, geoengineering, weather modification, it's in the news. The Florida State Senate has passed a bill banning certain types of weather modification and geoengineering. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is saying or admitting that DARPA is spraying chemtrails. I mean, talk about transparency. What do you make of all this?
Well, I think two things. I think it's wonderful. This is the most in the news that geoengineering has been in my lifetime. And, you know, I've been in this fight against geoengineering for going on 20 years. And I have to say that I've been smiling ever since. At least there's a dialogue. And it was when Trump came into office with Bobby Kennedy right beside him that we've had this wonderful dynamic of the problem and then someone working hard for our health and our well-being. That's a first in America in my life, because I was born the year that the National Security Act was born, along with the CIA. That didn't bode well for me. But it seems like I've spent my entire life searching in the trash and in the basement and under the rugs, looking for all the real history of this nation and what happened to us after John Kennedy's assassination in Dallas. So I'm thrilled.
You've called the climate change narrative a cover for a military intelligence geoengineering program. Talk to me about the evidence that points to full spectrum dominance as the true goal.
It's interesting that you would ask that, because just this week I was listening to Catherine Austin Fitts. She hasn't talked much about the secret space program recently. She used to talk about it quite a bit, especially when she and her lawyer friend at University of Michigan State were examining where in the heck $21 trillion missing from the American government had gone. And really, it seemed to me that she was pointing in the direction that she's now again pointing in, for other things, of the secret space program and the breaking. What did she call it? The civilization that a new civilization that
Breakaway
seems to be.
civilization? Breakaway
Yeah,
civilizations?
that's what she called it. And she's bringing it up again. And that's exactly what we need to do because, okay, let's take it step by step. You're asking about the full spectrum dominance. Yes, that is a doctrine of the American military. And I assume NATO, though I haven't checked that, NATO is behind this entire program of the chemtrails in the sky, leaving heavy metals in the sky, nanotech, biologicals, synthetic biologicals. This is all NATO because how do I know that? Because I once read what nations that want to be in NATO have to sign off on. And one of the things they have to sign off on in the agreement that they make with these other nations is that they will submit to chemicals being sprayed in their skies, and they will be contributing monthly to the expense of that of keeping that program going, because that program has to do with keeping the sky ionized, and the sky ionizing. You tend to think of it as communications, fast movie downloads, all the me culture that thinks of it in terms of entertainment and pleasure and convenience and comfort from their technology. What they're not thinking of is what else it's being used for. And it is definitely being used, this ionized sky of ours. It's a lab now. There are lots of experiments going on there of all the other operations that this program is dedicated to. And we have to become a little more adult, in my mind, about these programs run by federal governments. I don't know how it is in Canada, but here it's a full-time job to keep track of the national security state, which is what I actually call our so-called democratic republic. Those days are long gone. And we are now under intense surveillance all the time. They are being dosed with these terrible chemicals and the nanoparticles in them. Those nanoparticles, some of them are, yes, natural, but most of them are man-made, and they're nanotech. And it's so tiny, a nanometer is 1/1000th of a meter. So what we're doing is we're breathing all this stuff in without noticing it. It just comes in with the air because we're all breathing the same atmosphere. And then we have this amazing growth of strange illnesses. I mean, people now in the younger generations are probably accustomed to this and probably even think that we had this a long time ago of the autoimmune, particularly the autoimmune conditions. You can't call them a disease. You can't call them an illness, really. It's something that people live with for the rest of their lives. And what it means is this autoimmune situation. It can be chronic fatigue. It can be as extreme as Lyme disease. These are all new. And when I say new, I mean in the last 20, 25 years. Well, gee whiz, just ever since HAARP got going up in the high frequency active Aurora research project got going up in Gakona, Alaska, and the chemtrails started coming down on us. So this is some of the payback that is happening that Americans are not aware of, because the geoengineering itself, until very recently, was in the cupboard somewhere, back in the closet, in the basement, and we never heard about it. All we heard was, oh, well, this is helping you with global warming and climate change. That's entirely a cover story, except as with any good cover story, as you know, Richard, when you're running ops like this, you need what I call the 70-30-60-40 rule. And that is 70% truth and 30% spin or outright lies. And that is what we're getting regarding this. There are truths in global warming. There is something warming. Yeah, it's called ionospheric heaters. And they are going full steam ahead 24/7 because now, since 2013, the American military and the secret space program, and let's see, where else shall I go? How about the defense corporations? How about Rand Corporation? All of these are profiting greatly from the change in our atmosphere. And I entered this picture a long time ago with Clifford Carnicom when I met him by happenstance. You know how life is, sends you to the people you need. And he was studying the atmosphere and doing a lot of science measurements of it to find out what was going on with it. He was watching the jets fly over northern New Mexico and leaving not a contrail, not the short little trail that disappears in 30 seconds because it's just water vapor and ice crystals, but he was watching chemical signatures full splayed out behind the jets, and was, because he was a chemist and had worked for the Department of Defense and for the Bureau of Land Management, he understood these chemical signatures. And so he understood chemtrails very early on, and that they were not at all contrails and not natural. But also he would notice that, oh yeah, well, that's a military jet. And oh, that's a commercial jet. So this program that I write about, or did write about, I'm changing now, was the Project Cloverleaf. And anyone can read about it. It sort of was born at the same time the Strategic Defense Initiative, the SDI was born, the Star Wars program that George H.W. Bush, Dick Cheney, and Ronald Reagan, but he was just along for the ride, really, were initiated as a missile defense program, but it was not about missiles. They were moving from kinetic weapons on to this electromagnetic scene that we're in now, and this digital scene that we're in now. So that was all going on, and we were kept busy with wars and putting food on the table and paying debts, and we just didn't even notice, and we certainly didn't notice what we were breathing in, and that our health was suffering from it.
Can you sort of break it down? We've got you mentioned the heating of the ionosphere. You've got with HAARP, so there's some weather modification happening. Perhaps there's also what you call this full spectrum dominance. So we're breathing in chemicals. We're developing all of these syndromes and conditions and dependency on pharmaceuticals. And then there is a surveillance aspect to this. And then there's the synthetic biology aspect where they're actually changing our DNA. It seems like there's a lot of different things going on all at once. What's the end game? What are they trying to do here?
Well, of course, the short answer is transhumanism and the conversion of the planet from a nature-based planet to, what is it called? Metaverse, to something that is going to be digitized. Our experience, anyway, of it is definitely going to be digitized. When they've promised us that we are entering a post-human era, what they're saying is that we're going to experience what they call, they call it directed evolution. I don't know about that. Directed evolution, that sounds like a lot of BS to me, because it's like an oxymoron. You can't have directed anything if it won't be evolution. Evolution comes from within. Evolution is something that may be a conjoinery of the environment and your own organism, but it's definitely not run by Silicon Valley and DARPA. So we're kind of caught now in what in my second book, Under an Ionized Sky, Billy Hayes. You remember Billy Hayes, don't you?
Remind
He
me.
was the harp man. He was the guy that worked on 240 or so military projects around the world, creating ionospheric heater infrastructure. And the way it works is when you look at the HARP picture of, up there in Gakona, you see a lot of antennas. Well, these are not just any antennas. These are phased array antenna. Phased array antenna, which is in probably you own a cell phone, right, Richard?
Oh, yeah.
I certainly don't. It's a weapon system, and I can't afford to own those things. That has phased array antennas in it as well. They're very tiny, of course, because you can't lug around something like HARP. But this is a type of antenna that you can take the beam from one and the beam from another and the beam from another and the beam from another, and then you converge them, and now you've got a super beam. And this is a weapon system. So that's why I say that the cell phone is actually a weapon system, is you can be easily targeted by someone else with a cell phone who knows what they're doing. And the way they do that is they would, and this has to do with the full spectrum dominance. I haven't forgotten that part. What happens is you can pull energy from the Internet of Things, the Internet of Bodies, the Internet of Nano Things, etc. From the cell towers, of course, radar installations, NEXRADs, these big golf ball-looking things that they run things off of. You could do it from wind towers in a wind farm. You could use solar paneling for your energy. If you wanted to really target an area, all you would have to do is pull the beams from all those and prep the atmosphere, which is highly ionized. You'd prep it by, for example, the Fukushima earthquake in 2011. They brought it from 3 days in advance. They were laying heavy chemtrails. Same thing happened in Maui for the fire. That was a geoengineered fire. So, if you just don't sit around and wait for NBC or CNN or some talking head to tell you what to believe, because they're the experts, they're the important people who really know, you can begin to be an observer yourself and just look at what's going on in the sky and in the environment, and then become a little more savvy to reading disinfo and reading between the lines of news reports, paying attention to who's producing the news report, whether it's on TV or your cell phone or in a newspaper or magazine, and begin to understand that the entire atmosphere, the entire environment of the Earth has been recruited as what I would call, from a synthetic biology point of view, I would call it it's a way to control the environment in epigenetic ways. And the word epigenetic is, again, it's a new word for us in our vocabulary, but we have to start learning these words. Otherwise, there's going to be a whole nomenclature around us, like lassos around, a steer, and we're going to be the steer. So if we can just get over the fact that maybe we didn't like science in high school, and realize that we're living in a technological era dedicated to the secret space program. And that's the part missing from all the news accounts. And that's the part I'm putting back in, as is Catherine Austin Fitts in her way, in the way she's doing it. So what the full spectrum dominance, it's referring to the electromagnetic spectrum primarily. And if you look at the electro spectrum, you'll see that way out to one end are um, uh, gamma rays. In fact, I pulled something just to read it, just to make sure that everybody understands how far this whole thing can go. You can take what something happens. This happened on October 17 through October 20, 2022, and that was a gamma ray. Earth orbiting satellites detected the strongest gamma ray burst in modern history. How, how strong was it? It caused electrical currents to flow through the surface of our planet. Oh, that's pretty strong. And this guy, a climate scientist, I can hardly say his name, Andrew Klekokyuk, probably, I would guess, Eastern European. I am a climate scientist at the Australian Antarctic Division. VLF, very low frequency, is my hobby. I started doing VLF radio measurements in the 70s when I was in high school. This is the first time in my life I have ever detected a gamma ray burst. Well, maybe everybody wants to think that the gamma ray burst just sort of happened from the heavens. Not so. I'm sure it was produced by this program that is capable of having dominated the full spectrum, is completely controlled now because the ionosphere is controlled. And if you need proof for that, there's still a little video on the internet. I'm amazed it's still there. That's the meeting at the Alaska Senate. And they were talking, it was the HARP people talking with the Alaska government people about them taking over the HARP instrument at through University of Alaska Fairbanks. And what happens in that is you hear from DARPA, you hear the leader of DARPA. Yeah, we worked on that. We had a really good time with it. Everything went well. And given that we're dedicated to projects, we're moving on to something else. And now the military is taking over. So then the Air Force guy gets up and he says, yep, it's all worked great. HARP is amazing. And we now control the ionosphere. Boom. Statement made. So, the ionosphere starts about, I want to say 25 miles up and goes all the way up for hundreds of miles until it sort of merges with the magnetosphere. And the magnetosphere is another big round thing around us, protecting us from solar rays, etc., and cosmic rays. And that is completely controlled through CERN. So we have CERN here, and we have DARPA and the American military, particularly the Air Force and Navy, and then we have the Space Force, and we now have a president, second term, whose uncle was John Trump. Wow, John Trump. He lived during the time of Tesla, when Tesla was removed, we might say, that's a polite word, by the FBI. All of his data was given to John Trump to oversee. So then right beside the sitting president right now, we have Boy Wonder itching to go to Mars. So to me, I think it's very obvious if you know the primacy of the secret space program and how that's been cooking away since Khrushchev under JFK. When JFK was trying to, with Khrushchev, plan a way to both countries to be involved in the great adventure, the Star Trek, the Star Wars adventure of space. And then, lo and behold, something happened to Kennedy. He was removed from the picture, and the secret space program went dark, completely dark.
Bringing it back to the human body, and if the end goal is transhumanism, why don't they? What do they want? The elites who are responsible for this. Do they want us to be synthetic robots? And if that's the case, why not just kill us off and replace us with actual robots?
Well, that's a great question because that gets right down to the nitty-gritty of how I think Americans in particular, because of what materialists we are over here in the West, we don't think of, for example, the secret societies. Now, I know you've done shows where you've at least referenced secret societies. We tend to think that the secret societies are just sort of window dressing, I guess, when the truth is that they're pretty much, at least a couple of them, are pretty much managing everything, as far as I can see. And I'm definitely a deep researcher. I don't buy cheap. So, what is it about the human being that some so-called people, I don't know if they've already given up their humanity and just kept the shell and have something else living in there. I'm serious. I'm really serious. I can't tell anymore because so many people are so robotic now.
Right.
And I don't know quite who's there, but I know that if it's someone that I knew well, they are now very different. So that's going on, and that's mostly post-vax, I would say. Would you agree with that, Richard?
Yeah, I would say there was a clip I saw on X or someplace of Bill Gates talking about the mRNA technology that could somehow interfere with our ability to interfere with our spirituality.
Right. Okay, so back to the human question. What is it about the human being that is so hated by some who at least appear human? But I'm not sure about them, truthfully, because one thing I know, and I've said this many times on radio broadcasts, is that old saw that you hear in the old science, the Einsteinian and Newtonian science, that nature abhors a vacuum. And what that really is saying to me, and I'm, I know there are other ways of looking at it, but what it says to me is that if you forsake your humanity, and we can talk about what that means and what it looks like, but if you forsake it and you really despise the weakness, the sensitivity in humans, the things that some think are our best traits, the virtue, the desire to help others, that sort of thing. If you despise it, and then you're in a different species from me already, but it won't be noticeable for a while. And the same thing is going on now with the people undergoing a transhuman metamorphosis. In a way, we all are, because we've been breathing this smart dust and all that goes with it that is being completely engineered by very smart people who don't seem to have much of a heart, or who feel that it is worth the sacrifice of human 1.0 or Homo sapiens. It's worth the sacrifice of that first species in order to have a post-human rendition, which, for one thing, and this may surprise you, can get beyond the Van Allen belts. We have not gotten past the Van Allen belts yet. We have sent machines, yes, and we've gotten a lot of juice out of that, a lot of knowledge and things. But a human, no way. So if you had a silica-based human and who had veins and arteries that are self-assembling, self-repairing, and yet they're not made of anything that Homo sapiens would recognize, but are made of graphene oxide, hydrogel, and all the accoutrements of what we're finding in live blood analysis now, right now. And that includes the vaxxed and the unvaxxed, by the way. It does, because I have a feeling it all started with the vaxxed. In fact, I'm quite sure of that, having studied what you were talking about, the mRNA. And this is something that is constantly controlled in news sources, even in some of the alternative sources. I notice one of the things they want to keep out of the source material that they are supposedly telling the truth about. They want to keep the role of the electromagnetics out, and I know why, because the CV-19 injections were really about implanting an operating system. And this is something that Catherine talked about the other day as well, just a few days ago. There is now in those who have had the jab at least 1 to 3 times, then there is an operating system in them that is not in me, for example, because I am unvaxxed. Now, I can go around them, and this has happened to me, where I'm around people who are vaxxed, and because they're on the Bluetooth electromagnetic leash to some of Elon Musk's little CubeSats up there with highly sophisticated EEGs and things that can, read your statistics and send them back down to data centers like the one in Utah. Those things affect me in the fact that the vax people are in a particular electromagnetic field that is connected to a very active satellite leash. And a lot of their info, their vitals, et cetera, are being pumped up there because this is a massive, massive experiment. I think it's a little more than an experiment, but it is definitely still in play.
What are they going to do with that data? Sorry, Elana, what's the intent? What are they collecting that data for? What are they going to do with it? Is there a kill switch?
They're going to make more. I don't know. You wouldn't call it a race. More tribes, perhaps, of different. This is just the first transhuman race that's underway now. I have some of the elements because I've been breathing the smart dust, and all the programs that went into that, which, by the way, were big pharma. We're all the way back to IG Farben in World War I that provided all the chemicals for that war and wiped out an entire generation of youth that were European. So big pharma is involved in what's coming down from the sky that we're breathing, and that's going into our soil, into our water sources. And big pharma is obviously involved in the jabs. So we have a two-pronged assault for the sake of a post-human future of transhumans. And now let's return to that initial thing of why are humans so important to them? What's the deal? Why don't they just, why don't they just mind control us and run us around like rabbits?
Right.
So it's because of that spiritual element. And I'm a student of Rudolf Steiner. Mm-hmm. He speaks a lot about this, about what's coming. He knew what was coming because he knows the elites. He knows the occultists among the elites who have massive resources and have a very different, I can't even call it a morality, amorality, that word amorality, I think that fits. It's more about they're testing things, they want to own everything, they want everything to go the way they want it to go, and they want to, basically give God the finger, is what can I say, and be gods themselves on this planet.
Right.
It's as though they're turning it into C.S. Lewis's Out of a Silent Planet. I don't know if you read that sci-fi book he wrote, but it's very moving because you do recognize planet Earth in that book. So that to me is the real end game, is that they want to run the whole thing here. And then the question I'm usually asked then is, gee, aren't they worried about their kids?
Well, yeah, they're breathing in the same air. They're breathing in the same
Yeah,
air.
breathing the same air. But, they have a technology that, or several technologies probably, that we don't even know about. They always take care of themselves. It's like in the 80s, I watched the creation of AIDS, and I knew that it was being created by the World Health Organization, by the UN, whatever. And I noticed that 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 a lot of people were going to die. So they that was when all the homes started being built underground. I don't know if you remember that. Now we hear a lot. We don't hear about homes being built underground as much, but we hear about tunnels being built. We hear about a few cities being built that have high-speed rail connectivity under. It's hard to imagine, but certainly that would be done by the military and by people who have endless resources.
So let me, I want to go back to Morgellons for a moment because, that was dismissed as a delusion, but you call it early proof of synthetic biology. So what parallels do you see between Morgellon fibers and the structures that you mentioned being observed in jabbed individuals' blood?
Well, just recently, Raynette Senham, who was the mayor of Nevada City, I believe, at one point, she had a convocation of herself and 3 Swiss scientists who have sort of rediscovered and brought to the fore these fibers. And they are Morgellons fibers. I'm under no doubt there. I, on the other hand, worked with Clifford 20 years ago on these fibers. So, did we even know the word synthetic biology? No, I didn't even have the term then. I didn't have the term nanotechnology, though it was around. And that's what Morgellons really was. It was a type of fiber. First of all, you have the fiber, which is like black and small and sometimes difficult to see, sometimes not. And I remember taking the red wine test that Clifford had devised, where you clean your mouth and then you slosh this red wine or grape juice around in your mouth. You're looking for the dyeing, the DYE part. And then you spit it into a clean jar, and then you let everything settle. And then you see these fibers like scooching across the bottom of the glass. That definitely got my attention because that means they're in me and, well, they're in all of us because we're breathing them. They're being delivered from the sky because he was finding them in the petri dishes that he would put out in northern New Mexico. So there you go. There's the Morgellons. That was the first step. The best thing to read on that is you go to carnicominstitute.org. It's still up, and it's a great site. It's got all of Clifford's papers. You can navigate your way around, and you just put in Morgellons, and you'll come to lots of pictures, lots of text explanation. And despite all that he was discovering on his own on a shoestring budget back then, when he contacted the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, and the CDC and orgs like that we supposedly have to protect our health, they ignored him. But they were not ignoring him on the sly because they were all hitting his website over and over and over again. I think he had 125 or 130 hits from various organizations in DC and Colorado. So they were very interested to see what he would come up with on his own without anything from them.
What's the purpose of these Morgellon fibers inside the body? It's nanotech. I mean, what is it doing? Is it reprogramming our DNA?
No,
No.
not the DNA. At that point, I think the Morgellons was taking over various parts of the body, and the easiest part for it to take. I already interviewed about, I would say, 5 or 6 very serious Morgellon sufferers during that period when I was making my research in order to write the first book. And what I saw was that they were obviously self-assembling and self-replicating, because what you would see is that I remember this one woman in particular, her scalp was completely taken over by the Morgellons, and it had created a whole other terrain on her scalp. That was not what I would call skin. And so the Morgellons of that woman in particular, I don't know if they were programming all the different Morgellons for different things, but in that case, that's where I saw, yeah, they're interested in, well, they're trying to figure out how they could make something else from the human being, but use a real human being there and then have one of these pathogens that were obviously gain of function. I mean, the Morgellons was so obviously turned into a weapon, whatever it was initially. The word Morgellons was unfortunate because nobody took it seriously, thus the delusions of parasitosis. When people would do their best to go to a doctor and talk about how they felt something kind of moving under their skin and a lot of itching going on. So they were sent to the psych ward. Go figure. But the Morgellons was a term from the 1700s. And I assumed that the CIA had thought that one up, just like they thought up the term conspiracy theory that has given them such good mileage. The problem with the Morgellons, and I was just responding to someone who wrote me about this question, well, why doesn't everybody have those symptoms? If we've all breathed in the Morgellons, why don't we all have the symptoms? And that's a very good question. Because we don't all have the symptoms. It's very similar to the CV-19, isn't it? I mean, when the people had so-called COVID, they made us think that, well, yeah, some people will have the symptoms, they will be obvious, but others won't. That's why we need to vaccinate everybody. So to me, that's just like the Morgellons. Some people got the symptoms, some people didn't. I had an interesting experience in that when I went to, I had an appointment to go and visit Clifford and his wife in Idaho when they were living there. And 2 weeks before I was leaving, I got a huge rash on my left calf of my leg. And it was a strange rash because it had a head on it. And when I used my nail to pick the head, what was inside was a crystal, an amber-colored crystal. I was producing crystals in just that leg. That was it. There was no place else going on. So when I got to Idaho and I showed Clifford, we spent the days that we had planned to unpack a lot of specimens that were rolling in from a lot of people who were suffering. We were going to go over all that, but we spent time on my leg. And when I left, by the time I got home, and about a week or week and a half later, one night I went to sleep. I got up in the morning, no rash, gone, completely gone. And that was my first moment of realizing, Richard, that they're using electromagnetics. They activated it in me, and they made all those crystals grow. For what? For whatever. And of course, they use crystals, I guess, for communications. I don't know. I felt it was because I was coming to see Clifford, and they were messing with me, and we were not able to do the work that we had set out for ourselves. So, it goes way back, and now we have these three Swiss scientists who are finding these spider webs out on the fields in basically northern European countries. This is something that Harald Kautz-Vella went through. He was once the German chemist. He also worked with the fields and the agricultural industry in Germany, and he had to do with that. And he would find fibers, and he talked about the fibers in very interesting ways, very unlike Clifford's, very meat and potatoes sort of in the lab thing. And that's now we again hear about it by these three scientists, but it didn't go very far. They had that convocation of the four of them, very interesting. It was a couple hours long. I listened very carefully. Not a mention of Clifford Carnicum, not a mention of the history of Morgellons, but they had some good information, and I assumed maybe they were ignorant, or maybe not. Maybe it was something else. But that bringing it back, and then right after that, we had the Trump was in office. And he then passed that very interesting Stargate AI, and I recognized it right away as being secret space program. Remember, we had Stargate years ago. That term was used in 1977 when they were studying, they said, remote viewing and mind control. And then out of that came the men who stare at goats, and ha ha ha. So for some reason they picked that word up again, Stargate, and it has to do with AI, an AI program that is going to cost, what did they say, 50 billion? And who's running it? Oh, well, surprise, surprise, Silicon Valley. So we are moving into a phase where there will be more that we will know about geoengineering, but not touching anything to do with the role of geoengineering and synthetic biology, and this spreading this synthetic biology in that we're breathing, so that we are already transforming before we get the operating system from the injections. That's my theory.
Okay, so COVID then was a Trojan horse for installing transhumanist tech?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
How are technologies like HARP and NexRad and smart meters that are weaponizing the electromagnetic spectrum, I mean, how are they impacting on consciousness?
Well, here I turn to Rudolf Steiner because he is the only sensible person that, in a way, I can find on this, is that by turning us, okay, so we've had years of electromagnetics, right? We go back to electricity in Arthur Furstenberg's wonderful book on the history of electricity. I think it's called The Invisible Rainbow. Highly recommend it. Arthur has passed from this realm and now is in another realm. Bless him. He talks about how the epidemic or the pandemic called, that was the Spanish-American War time, 1898 or so. And he says that the reason that outbreak that was so extensive happened was because of the electromagnetics, because we had just bought into electricity really big time. And you go back to Wuhan, and that was the case there too. They had just they had a state-of-the-art that they had just put in place, 5G system. And then you see those people dropping like flies and supposedly dying. Of course, later we hear the what I think was a disinfo campaign of, oh well, that was just actors, and because we're also cynical now because we've been played so many times, and so we don't believe we don't know how to observe and compare and contrast. In other words, we don't know anymore how to think because there's too much electromagnetic energy. We're now living in a wireless planet, and the rays are moving through us like battalions, and we're not aware of it because we're now entering an invisible uh, test or trial, and we don't know what to do when we can't see it or feel it or smell it or taste it. We are completely at sea, and we can be fooled easily. So to me, the electromagnetics that we're now seeing, and there are some people talking about it who are pretty smart people, and it's that these, for example, the mRNA and the what's it called that goes with it? That scary I can't remember. They're mobilizing these things, and they can mobilize it in you if you're standing over there. They can use the same technique of a carrier wave to take the digital formatting of the representation of that disease state. They can put it into a digital form, send it to you, and you will have the symptoms of that formatted digital disease. That could be Ebola, that could be AIDS, it could be cancer. The cancer they're going wild with now. But this is the key to this money-making venture called Western medicine that really wants to keep people sick, so that, or at least believing they're sick, so that they'll take all the drugs of big pharma and slowly undermine the immune system of Homo sapiens.
Is this what you mean by the Internet of Bodies, where you're linking geoengineered nanotech to global surveillance and control systems with the human body?
Yeah, well, that's what Sabrina Wallace talks about. If you don't know her yet, you better get with it, because she is the one who is explaining to us our situation as what does she call it? WebEns, the wireless body area networks that we are, because we have always been these spiritual beings living in a series of bodies. Like, I have my physical body, I have my etheric body, I have my astral body, and now I apparently have my electromagnetic body is thriving. I've always had it, because you can't think without some electromagnetics in your nervous system. It's essential to us. But we are not really electromagnetic beings. We were not originally electromagnetic beings. We now may be, because of all the nanotech and all of the wireless ionization of our planet, and the direct line of ingress coming from the ionosphere. Yeah, we may now be actual electromagnetic beings, because of course that's what they want. They don't want all that vulnerability and sensitivity of the astral body and the etheric body. They don't want that. They want an electromagnetic being who can get beyond the Van Allen belts and deal with things in space, because there's going to be a lot of radiation that there will be encountering, and blah blah blah. So that's kind of what I think they have going, and they're willing to, you can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs. They're willing to break billions of eggs in order to get to this.
You've called for defending Human 1.0. What practical steps can we take to detox from nanotech, resist this biodigital invasion?
Well, the first thing that people need to do is really examine their lifestyle. And in America, We tend to be very childlike in that, if an expert or an ad even, an ad says, "Oh, this is great. This will be so good for you," and blah blah blah, and we buy cheap. We buy cheap all the time, and then we get sick and we blame a virus. How handy to have a virus around that you can blame, and then you can go and make the medical industry rich. There is no virus, as Thomas Cowan tells it, MD. He has a wonderful book, and he comes out all the time and talks about that. This has been a problem for the 200 years, I think, of Western medicine. We haven't been having Western medicine very long compared to Chinese medicine, for example, which is 5,000 years old. So, so if you take the you bring your electromagnetic footprint down to the core. Now, I own this laptop. Do I own a TV? Never. Never owned one, never will. Cell phone? Nope. Never owned one, never will. I have my printer, my laptop in the walls. We have 60 hertz here in America. And then I have my electric lights. These are full spectrum bulbs. I spend a little more in order to have that. And in my bedroom, there is absolutely no electromagnetics other than the 60 hertz in the wall. And I keep my head away from the wall. So I sleep very well. I sleep deep and I sleep well. All right. So I think people need to study their electromagnetic footprint. That's the first thing. And start weaning yourself because, as Rudolf Steiner says, electromagnetics means death. It's very clear on that. The etheric means life. And the etheric is simply that élan vital, the chi, the ki, and that is we have an etheric body, and if our etheric body gets sick, we're screwed. I mean, come on. A couple of vitamins aren't going to make a difference at all. So that's the first thing is your environment. Bring your electromagnetic down. The next thing I would say is, which I think is very important, is an inner life. If you don't have an inner life, and I don't mean necessarily meditating every day and doing yoga, or I don't have a picture of your inner life. I have a picture of mine. I know exactly what I need to do to maintain mine so that I remain human. That's the key. You must remain human. If you believe in reincarnation, as I do, I was 8 years old when I first had the experience that I had lived before. And then later it made more sense because I thought everybody knew that. Not true. The reincarnation, if you believe in it, if we only have synthetic transhuman bodies to return to, that's not going to work because we are divine beings, and we need the divine home for the divine being. We're not going to be able to go with Silicon Valley and all that. No. So that's why I fight so hard. I want a remnant human Homo sapiens. We must retain that. And then the third thing I would recommend is if you don't know how to cook and you're not cooking, learn to cook. Eat at home. Eat organic every time you can. Eat out at restaurants as little as possible because they're using GMOs. And the GMOs we've had those since the 30s. That's where the transhumanism began, was with the GMOs. And, the seed of a GMO, a genetically modified food, we used to call it the Terminator seed because you can't, yes, it won't grow beyond one growing season. You have to go back to get more and make somebody rich. But that's not the worst of it. It's that it's synthetic seed. It's synthetic seed. It's not natural seed at all. So, if you've spent all these years saving your pennies because you don't want to spend more for organic, you were wrong. You should have at least gotten mostly organic, which is heirloom seed. And that is for real human beings. So that's kind of the new paradigm is this for real human beings or is this for the synthetic folks? Because some folks do want to be synthetic. You know that. A lot of these younger generations have been bought off or destroyed by years of daycare and television. I don't know what it is. They're just, there it is, and there will be a few who will break away from that and will be able to take care of themselves. But learn to cook, learn to grow food if you can. If you have the space, check your soil, because your soil is going to have a lot of aluminum in it, because that's the main chaff that they're using to deliver the chemtrails is aluminum. It's cheap, has 4 times the surface area of most of the heavy metals, and it destroys the human being faster. Hey, great, right? That's kind of how it is now. So, instead of seeing that as all paranoid and it sounds like sci-fi and she's crazy, I'm telling you, the best way to make yourself get through this era, because this is just beginning. This is not the end. This is the beginning. We need to learn to take care of ourselves and our loved ones.
Well, here's a fourth thing. Here's a fourth thing people can do, Elana, and that is to sign up for the Elana Freeland book course, where they can discover the truth about 5G, chemtrails, big pharma, and the deep state. And you'll be discussing chemtrails, HARP, and the full spectrum dominance of planet Earth under an ionized sky, geoengineered transhumanism, the geoengineered transhuman, and the whole Sub Rosa America, Sub Rosa series as well. How do we sign up for that, and what happens? How does it work?
Yeah. What's the name of the organization? I still don't even know that.
Truth-Matters.
Yeah, Truth Matters. That's it. Truthmatters.com. And it's run by a lovely guy and his team in Ireland. And his name it has no vowels in it. It's a bit of a challenge. So sign up there. It's cheap. I won't be making a lot of money, but I want people to understand the basics of this, so that they can talk with other people. I don't want to be the only person that is talking about this. And the fourth thing I wanted to add, though, Richard, and that is, please stop going to doctors. I know I can't say that because I'm not a medical person, but you're talking to someone who has not been to a doctor since I was 13. I'll be 78 next month, and everything works great. And I know what to do because I studied Chinese medicine. I know what to do if I get sick, which I don't really. But if I do, I know how to conduct myself. Learn, take advantage of being incarnated on the earth in one of the most desperate, extraordinary times. I can't believe I'm so fortunate to be able to be here to really fight this war, because I have very strong feelings about this, and I really love humanity. It's like Mark Twain said. He said, that's the state I'm from, Missouri. I was born in Missouri. Mark Twain said, I love humanity. It's people I can't stand. Anyway, that's what is a fourth step. And that's what this next book I'm writing right now is about. Remaining Human is about all of the things I just said, plus a lot more.
Okay, again, that's the Elana Freeland book course with a monthly author Q&A call. And you can sign up at www.truth-matters.co. truth-matters.co. Elana, always a pleasure. Thank you so much. Can't wait for the new book, and we'll have you on again to discuss.
All right, Richard. Thanks so much.
A new Richard Syrett's Strange Planet drops every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.